Airsofters, ODA here. My name is Matt. Today we're going to be doing a gun review of the KWA M1911 Mark IV. Starting with the parts of the gun, you will notice the lower portion of the handgun is made up of metal as well as the slide. The only major polymer parts on the pistol include the outer barrel and the grip panels. As far as features go, this gun features a functioning slide release, ambidextrous safety, grip safety, and a single magazine release on the left side of the pistol. It is worth mentioning that the slide does lock back on the last shot fired, and you can choose to either use the slide release or power stroke it to chamber the next round. As I mentioned before, this gun does feature a grip safety. Once it's engaged, the gun will be able to fire. However, if there is no pressure engaged on that grip safety, nothing will happen. And I do find this to be a problem if you are wearing gloves, because on occasion it will not engage the grip safety. And obviously the other safety there is ambidextrous and can be used with either right-handed shooters or left-handed shooters, which makes it a very nice feature. As far as trades go, on the left side of the pistol, it will tell you what mark series of pistol it is and a unique serial number. And on the right side, it will tell you the caliber of BB that it fires, as well as the KWA logo. Disassembly of the M1911 isn't quite as simple as some of the other pistols out on the market. First thing you'll need to do is slide the slide back about halfway and push the slide catch up into a little notch located on the slide. Once you've done this, you're going to flip your handgun over and actually push the actual slide catch out from the other side using your finger. Once you've pushed it through, you're going to actually need to pull it out using your other hand, as it is a little stiff. Once you've done this, the only thing you need to do is simply slide the slide off the lower frame, and there you have your two pieces of the handgun. This is where things start to get a little hectic. For this next part, you're actually going to need a very small Allen key, or you're going to need some type of paper clip. But either way, you're going to need something small in the shape of an L. First things first, simply push the spring guide forward, and you will notice the small little hole right there. That's where you're going to need to insert your Allen key. Once you've inserted the tool that you've chosen to use, you can release tension on the spring and simply pull the spring guide out. Now, when you choose to use your tool, the smaller the better, okay? So try to find the smallest Allen key or make the pin or whatever you're trying to use as small as possible, because it is hard to actually wobble that spring guide out of that little tube in the slide. Once you've done that, you've pretty much disassembled the gun into its three major parts. But if you choose to go a step further, simply remove the Allen key from the hole and separate the spring from the spring guide. Once you have done all these steps, you have pretty much disassembled your M1911 into the basic form to clean and or lubricate it. The 1911 comes with one double-stack 21-round gas magazine. It actually has this cool little feature on it that allows the slide that feeds the BBs up into the gun to be locked down into the lower portion of the magazine, making feeding BBs much easier. The chronograph test was conducted with Elite Force .20 gram BBs on propane, and it averaged in at around 295 feet per second. So now it's time to move on to the shooting test portion of this video. To do this, we're going to try to isolate as much shooter error as possible by propping the gun up on a little box or stand, and we're going to hold it there and just pull the trigger repetitively, keeping the sights on target. And what that's going to do is it's going to eliminate the maybe slight wobble or movement the shooter will have when he's aiming at the target, so we can just test the gun's base accuracy. But without further ado, let's get started. The accuracy test was conducted with Elite Force .20 gram BBs on propane from a range of 30 feet. As you can see from the grouping, shots 1, 2, 3, and 4 were pretty close together, with the exception of the fifth shot, which was probably a flyer. As you can see from the ruler, the distance between the fifth and the second shot, the two farthest shots apart on the target, is only about 4 inches. Now keep in mind that this is a pistol, so for that to be that close together, even with a flyer, is pretty impressive. Excluding the flyer, shots 3 and 1 were only about 3 inches apart. Alright, so to wrap up this review, we're going to finish with my final thoughts on the KWA M1911 Mark IV. Let's start with the pros first. Alright, so for the first pro, I'd just like to build up the overall build, construction, and quality of the parts on the gun. And as you can see probably from looking at all the wear and stress marks on it, I haven't yet to have any problems relating to breaking or damaging the gun in any way to a point where it will not function anymore. And that's something I find very important in my guns that I use, because when I use my guns, I beat them up pretty good. So, Having a gun that will withstand my torture test that I ultimately run through in my cycle as a airsofter is always going to be a plus to me, because I hate to see my gun go down middle of a firefight because I dropped it in the dirt or got some sand in it, what have you. So really glad KWA really took that extra step to make this gun really high quality and really durable. Alright, so for my second pro on the list, I'm really happy that KWA made this gun available in OD green and black, because let's be honest, one, style points in airsoft mean a lot, because let's be honest here, who doesn't like looking tactical on the field? And secondly, I like to think it adds a little bit of effect to blending in with your surroundings a little bit. And realistically, it might not help as much as having like, a good camouflaged kit, but at the same time, really looking for those tactical points there, and might help blend in a little bit if you're hiding in the bushes in a woodland environment. For my third pro on the list, I'm really happy with the shooting capabilities of this gun. One, not only does it have a really decent FPS output, but it also, I've just had really good luck with it in terms of jamming, because a lot of the other pistols I've had, if it gets some sand in the slide, it will tend to lock up, kind of like right where the hammer meets the slide, kind of like that. But I haven't had problems with this pistol. If I dropped it in the sand or the dirt, I just kind of dust it off a little bit and it's good to go. So in terms of jamming and reliability, I've had no problems with this. It shoots straight and true, and it's still held up after all the beating it's taken. So I'm just really happy that this gun has been able to perform despite what I've put it through. Alright, now that we've talked about my pros, let's go over a few of the cons that I have with this pistol. First con on the list isn't actually so much as a problem as it is more or less an annoyance, and that is the fact that it is a little wobbly. If you listen to this, it shakes and rattles a little bit, and something that irks me a lot about my guns, and maybe just be a bad habit to myself, is I like my guns to be solid, sturdy, and I don't like them to have shake in it. It's just a little pet peeve I have, but I like my guns to be solid. But it does shake a little bit. Again, it does not affect the overall firing capabilities of the gun, but again, just a little minor annoyance that I have with it. Alright, so for the final con I have on my list is not so much as a problem I'm having with the gun, but so much as a problem I'm having with the magazines. Now, the first problem is, if you're looking to buy extra magazines for this gun, go ahead and start saving up, because if you want to buy maybe 2 extra mags of these, you're probably going to be spending in upwards of $80 for these things, because individually they cost around $40+, which is actually pretty expensive for a gas pistol mag. And the other problem I'm having with them is, the same problem I'm having with a couple other KWA products of mine, is that the BBs tend to feed. When they get up to here, if they get a little sand gets up in there, they tend to lock up right around those feed lips, and actually the gun will proceed to shoot propane, but no BBs will actually be expelled from the barrel. So you'll think you'll be shooting at somebody, and the gun will be, slide will cycle and everything. You think you're shooting, but really no BBs are feeding. So you kind of have to be really careful with that, because you can't. There's no real way to tell if it's jamming or not, other than to see the BB coming out of the barrel. So just a little con I have with the magazines. It's not a problem that I've had very frequently, but it did happen a couple of times when I was using it. So I just think it is worth bringing up. Alright guys, well that'll about wrap it up for my gun review on the KWA M1911 Mark IV. If you enjoyed, please be sure to click that like button down below, and if you have any comments or questions regarding the video, please leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. So, thanks for watching.